Six Nations Team of the Week. I've gone ahead and picked 15 players that I thought played pretty well at the games at the weekend. There's a fair few English and Frenchmen in the side. Wales and Ireland, not so much this week. It's just the way the cookie crumbled. I guess not to say there weren't some decent individual performances, but it is always easier to go with the guys on the winning team, isn't it? Right, I'll start with some props. Remember, this is like a fantasy team rather than a strict position for position, but there you go. It's just the way I like to do it. It gives me a bit more flexibility. But Sutherland from Scotland, he's proven pretty good at scrum time. I think that's the main reason you pick a prop. Everything else is kind of secondary, but his scrummaging is very good, and that's part of what you get a winning team to do is to scrum well. It's often harder to win games if you are losing in that area of the game. So far, so good for him. I mean, he had 3 runs, 3 meters, which is standard prop stuff. A pass, 4 from 4 tackles. But the main thing for him is he was very good in the scrum. Another good scrummager who does have some of that stuff more than just the scrummaging is Karl Singler. 4 runs, 4 meters. 1 meter per run per prop is exactly what the doctor ordered. You're not going to get given stick by the other front row boys for those kind of numbers, but he had 8 tackles, 4 passes, and his passing is slick. Even if you don't like the guy, even if you're not an England fan, you got to admit, for a prop, that guy's got some pretty good hands. Like if you were going to name a prop to play 10 for 1 week, he'd be up there in terms of your selections. Hooker is one that I changed several times. I ended up kind of going with a safe option and Jamie George from England. 6 runs, 14, not 40, is a good return. 2 passes, even an offload among that. 6 from 6 tackles. The line-out did have a couple of failures, but for the most part, pretty good all-round effort from him. Got subbed fairly early on from memory, but still for the minutes there was on. Very good shift from him. Locks, I've gone with Willemse from France. He has been pretty good all Six Nations. So has Leroux, but I've gone with Willemse this week from France. He had a try. 10 runs is very busy work. He was getting himself involved. 19 run meters, which is pretty good return for a guy in the second row. Beat 2 defenders. 19 out of 19 tackles. And that's what those French props have been doing, man. Like, in terms of their defensive setup, a lot of it seems to rely on the big boys making big numbers of tackles. So he is doing that in spades. Another guy who's not afraid of the odd tackle is Merritt O'shea. 2 runs, 4 meters. For him, that's probably a bit below par. But still, 17 out of 18 tackles. Also very busy at the breakdown. 2 passes as well, so just generally another pretty dominant shift from him as well. Had a bit of off-the-ball stuff going on, but there were a few instances of that in that game. Lucy's, I've gone with Courtney Laws. He was busy. Again, for an old boy, which he kind of called himself in his post-match interview, he was showing some proper work rate. A lot of criticism came his way before this game as well about how they selected him in the back row. If he's going to be selected, it needs to be at the lock, blah, blah, blah. But 7 runs, 13 meters, 3 passes, beat 2 defenders, 10 out of 11 tackles. And again, just that work rate. Ruck time, he is, good value for his selection. So probably stopped Eddie Jones from getting criticised for a week until he selects his next team. I've gone with another flanker in Hamish Watson from Scotland. 14 runs for 32 meters is a pretty darn good effort. 7 passes, 2 defenders beaten. Also had an offload. Also had 15 out of 15 tackles. A lot of the defensive efforts were pretty solid this week. Not all. There are certainly some guys who missed tackles, but he was also very good. Richie was good as well, but I've gone with Watson. Didn't say he had any turnovers on the website that I used for stats, but maybe I need to check the AWS ones from the official site, because at the breakdown he was, I felt, pretty menacing. One guy who did get some breakdown stats, and I can't believe I haven't selected any of the French guys here in the back row. It's disgraceful, but Jake Pelledri, man, in a losing team, he was putting in a top shift, and he usually does that as well. 13 runs, 28 metres. He is a dynamic ball carrier. 7 defenders beaten. Also had a clean break. Also had 7 passes, 2 offloads, 17 out of 18 tackles, a line-out win, and 3 turnovers. Yeah, man. One of the most impressive players of the weekend in a team which didn't score any points. So it seems counterintuitive, but there you go. There it is. Now, get your angry comments ready now, because I have chosen Youngs from England as scrum half. Now, he is still not the quickest. He's getting old, and a quicker player probably would have got England some more points in the first half, but he didn't get registered with a try assist for Ford's try, even though it was his kick through. Maybe you give the try assist to Sexton. I don't know, but he was still all right, man. 4 runs, 9 metres, an offload. Distribution for the most part okay, pretty good. You feel like Dupont was all right. Like, I remember his sniping runs in the first couple of games were amazing, and Murray's distribution in one of the games was really good, but Youngs is just kind of cruising there. Mr. Fairly Consistent. I hate to give him more praise because I know I'm going to get shut down in the comments, but there you go. I've gone with Youngs as my pick. I felt like Dupont was maybe just overshadowed by Intermac outside him. Speaking of that guy, Intermac is the guy there. At 10, there was probably no question about that. He had a try, 3 conversions, 2 penalties. It was a bit of a momentum shifter, at least. It proved to be a key difference maker in terms of that game, where he got that intercept, good read. 7 runs, 72 metres, but largely that's the intercept, which is also the 1 clean break that he got. 2 defenders beaten and offload, 6 from 8 tackles. Looks like a cool customer, man. He's still very young. So good news for French rugby fans going forward. Midfielders, I have gone with another Scotsman and Chris Harris. Hugh Jones got dropped. And again, Harris probably wasn't phenomenal, but he was very good, man. Like, he put in a solid shift in a week where they probably needed someone to be nice and consistent, and that's what he did. So a try, which was really well taken, 3 runs, 22 metres, is a pretty good return in terms of the number of runs for the number of metres. A clean break, a defender beaten, 2 passes, 10 from 12 tackles. Solid all-round shift from him. Tuilangi is my other pick in the midfield. I feel like his stats don't do him justice, because he definitely was a physical presence, and you can really feel the difference when he is in the side. I mean, 10 runs, which is a lot. It's a good bit of work rate. They're using him as a running option. 29 metres, but I mean, if you look at the runs per metre, Harris had 22 from 3. This is 29 from 10. But still, like I said, doesn't do him justice. 2 defenders beaten, 7 from 8 tackles, just very physical. And even if he's not the guy who gets the ball, he makes defenders think twice. So just such a valuable asset to have. Outside backs, fullbacks galore. Bouthier from France, he has been another guy who's just been very quietly consistent. Not that quiet as well. From that first big kick that he put in the game against England, he has been a very, very consistent pair of hands at the back of that French back three. He had a try, 15 runs, 122 metres, a clean break, 2 defenders beaten, 2 from 3 tackles. He set up a try which was disallowed, but probably should have been allowed. So another guy who's looking pretty good value for France. If France have been looking good. Another fullback in Hogg from Scotland. Really game-breaking move when he scored his try, bit of individual brilliance. 11 runs, 136 metres, 2 clean breaks, 4 defenders beaten, an offload. 3 from 6 tackles is the one kind of black mark, but it was that bit of magic which kind of cracked that game open. And lastly, going with Fiku from France. Another kind of controversial selection. Can't put that guy out on the wing. He's a midfielder. 6 runs, 25 metres. Doesn't seem that impressive. He scored a magic try, which was disallowed. Proper bit of magic. He came into the midfield sometimes. Maybe he's a bit more accustomed to that. It was a bit more familiar for him. But either way, 3 defenders beaten, 5 passes. 3 from 6 tackles is, again, a bit of a black mark. But yeah, overall, thought he was pretty dangerous. So yeah, I mean, if you want 2 wingers and just 1 fullback, you can easily put Daly there. He was also very, very good for England. If you were looking at just numbers, like just stats, Tompkins from Wales had great stats, but you feel like some of the decision making in that game was maybe a bit costly. Like, you do the hard work and then picking that line or picking that pass just wasn't quite there. So it's a good problem to have in terms of just adjusting that one part of his game when all the other stuff is there, rather than trying to create something from nothing. From Ireland, you thought Peter Romani was pretty good. Again, in a losing team, which was a bit flat, but he was certainly looking sharp. From Wales also, I was initially going to pick Owens as the hooker. Like, he had a phenomenal amount of runs. It was like 13 runs. Like, the other front rows I got here are 3, 6, and 4. He had like 13, but he made like 3 meters. So on the one hand, you can say, man, great work rate. He was looking for work. He was busy. But then also, if he wasn't getting there, it's like, is it really worth it? Like, if you had a guy who took 7 shots at a drop goal and got one of them, you probably wouldn't reward him for that. So, I figured I would go with George instead of Owens. Underhill also was a good shout. Like I mentioned, the French back row. Dupont, if you were going to switch Youngs. If you can't stand Youngs, just pretend that says Dupont and you'll be a bit happier with the selection. Bellini, even from Italy, also had a pretty good game, I thought, as well. So, yeah, there's more guys that could go in. That's just the ones I picked based on the games that I saw. Just the one time that I've seen them, but those are the ones that I picked based on the stats, my gut feeling, and yeah. You guys can let me know your thoughts. Tell me why Ben Young's a terrible pick. And drop us a like or a dislike. Either way is good. But yeah, talk to you guys again soon. See you later.